Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. Welcome. So, they did a super long campfire chat, huge patch notes, tons of information going up to the Vessel of Hatred launch for Diablo 4. So much information that there's just no way I'm going to be able to recap it all for you guys. I'm sorry. It's just not possible. I'm going to miss out on stuff, and I know it. Let's start by talking about some of the PTR learnings, some very specific things that they changed, and kind of like how that potentially affects the game as a whole. So first off, one of the things that they did in the PTR, which was kind of odd, was they made it so that your stats gave you way more damage. It was actually 2 times more damage than what your stats were giving you in Season 5. So as an example, let's say you were a necromancer and you had 2,000 intelligence. That would be divided by 8, which was the divisor, which would give you a total multiplier of 250%. In the PTR, your 2,000 intelligence was being divided by 4 instead, which was giving you a 500 times multiplier, essentially multiplying all of your damage by 2. Now, the interesting thing here is that because I guess the difficulties were just way too easy, and obviously a lot of people complained that they were way too easy, they did 2 things. Number one, they reverted the changes back to the original values of the divisor by 8 instead of the divisor by 4, which means instead of a 500 times multiplier, you're going to have a 250, just like you did in Season 5. Another thing that they did was the legendary glyphs and additive damage from the multipliers and whatnot that was coming from the actual legendary glyphs. They were just kind of ridiculous. Absolutely so. In fact, to the point where you were getting 2,000 or 3,000% additive bonus from a legendary glyph, and they said they significantly reduced this. So as far as the difficulty of the game goes, I can't really comment on whether they fixed it or not, but with these 2 changes alone, it probably is fixed. So the difficulty of the game is probably going to be much more stark in contrast as you increase in difficulties now, because obviously your damage is going to be less, and also you're going to be getting less from legendary glyphs once you start getting into level 60 and you start doing the Paragon board. Both of these things combined are going to have a pretty strong effect in your overall damage output for the character, which is going to make the content feel harder. Honestly, that's a good thing, because it was way too easy before. So I'm happy to see this change, although I don't know exactly how this is going to play out in the game itself. But it is something that I feel like I should point out right from the get-go, because this is a very good change in the foreground. Another thing that they changed, which was very interesting, is apparently elites had multiple categories. There was elites, unique elites, super elites, and they've kind of categorized them all to deal normalized damage. Apparently, elites would do, say, 1 times damage, and then unique elites were doing 2 times damage, and super elites were doing 3 times damage or some bullcrap. And it was making things difficult to understand exactly how much damage was incoming. Say, for instance, you had a monster with a lightning enchanted, and he was elite. Well, he would do, say, 1,000 damage. But then the super elite was doing, 3,000 damage, and the unique elite was doing, 2,000 damage, and so forth and so on. And so they set it up now where they're all kind of doing the same amount of normalized damage from the enchantments, which should be a good thing. Standard difficulty tiers, they made it so that Penitent is now a standard difficulty tier, so Penitent will be unlocked from level 1. So if you feel like you're strong enough, if you can access Penitent and actually take on the challenge, which I don't know if we're going to be able to. If this was the previous version, so if it was, say, the PTR, I would say, yeah, I totally could have handled Penitent at level 1. I would have been fine. Now, I'm not really entirely sure with the changes that they made, so we'll see. They also kind of increased the quality of items earlier in the game, too, though, which is going to make the game a little bit easier, as well as this change, which makes the game a little bit harder. Masterworking normal items can now be masterworked up to 8 times from 4. As well as normal items can now be tempered twice instead of just once. So normal items are less garbage than they were before. They're still technically garbage because they're still 750 item power, and they're still going to only have 8 tempers instead of 12. So they're basically, they won't have greater affixes either. So they're still basically going to be crap compared to ancestral items, but they are still going to be better than they were in PTR. Unique triple drop chance as ancestral. So basically, they saw an issue where the uniques were more often than not dropping not as ancestral, and since the uniques were, difficult to drop in the first place, and then like you would go and farm like the same unique item like multiple times, and then it would just never drop ancestral. They said tripled the drop chance for ancestral uniques. So we'll have to see how that goes. Scrolls of Restoration apparently are going to be a whole thing, and they're going to be in the season journey. The Scrolls of Restoration are going to allow you to reset the temper limit on an item. So if you ever bricked an item, you're going to at least get another chance to brick it again. There's a hell of a lot more than this. I kind of gave up on taking notes because, well, there's just so many little images and stuff. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go over this, which is the news article that they released today after the PTR. And it does have some PTR learnings in here as well. So anything marked with red denotes a change based off feedback from PTR. So the first thing that they talked about in this is the colossal new threat, which is the Realm Walkers. The Realm Walkers is an old feature from Diablo 3. It's basically these big, giant, hulking monsters that have portals on their backs. And once you beat the portal monster, they fall to the ground, and then you can access the portal. Going through the portal gets you access to a special realm. The special realm, of course, is going to have a special thing to do. These are going to be world events. So throughout the continent, there will be 5 regions of Diablo 4's base game. And then, of course, they will spawn every 15 minutes, rotating locations each time. Once an hour, a second Realm Walker will appear in Nahatsu, in addition to being somewhere in Estuar. Basically, the Tree of Whispers demands the power of the Realm Walkers. The first Realm Walker spawned of every hour of Estuar will be a Whisper. Every 3 hours, the Realm Walker spawned in Nahatsu will be a Whisper. So basically, they look like this once you defeat them, and they're just kind of sitting on the ground, and you can go through the portal. Once you go through the portal, you'll find a special Realm Gate, which is the Torment Challenge, and you can actually try and farm very specific items with this, which is really cool. So you can basically give up certain kinds of offerings, essentially, whether it be sigil powder or different things that give different rewards. This one in particular, summon items and infernal compasses. There's also one that gives like I'm trying to remember all of them off the top of my head. You can also get Seething Opals, which are a new type of elixir that provides you with 15% experience bonus. They go for 30 minutes at a time. They also stack with regular elixirs, which is pretty cool. And there's some pictures of them here. As you can see, some of them give you enemies routinely drop additional gold, killing accumulate reputation remnants, boss summoning items, herbs and crafting. This one is also equipment. And this one is apparently a socketable that will give you additional rune drop chance, which is really nice. There's also a reputation quest with the Zakarum. Everybody's been having a lot of fun with the reputation quests ever since they first introduced them in the, I think it was season 4, wasn't it? And this is just another reputation quest with the Zakarum. I'm pretty sure that at the end of this, there's probably going to be a Resplendence Park, just like in the other ones. Now, the leveling changes have still gone into play, so they are still going to make it so the Paragon is shared across all your characters in that particular realm. So obviously your softcore characters have all Paragon in their specific like seasonal realm or eternal realm. But like for instance, it would not transfer over to your hardcore characters. Your hardcore characters have a different thing. And when your character transfers over from seasonal to eternal, he takes his Paragon points with him, and it adds to the total. So that's the whole thing. You're only going to be able to get to level 60 now, and you get 10 more skill points because of it, and 10 more levels. On top of this, you get up to 300 Paragon points now total. There is some changes to the way that the characters will be transferred over. So if you are playing on the Eternal Realm, your characters will go from 100 to 50, which is basically the previous level cap. And then the new level cap, which is 60, is 10 levels higher. So you're going to have to level up to the new level cap. You'll be given 200 Paragon points if you capped out your Paragon points from before, because that was the previous cap, and 300 is the new cap. Stat adjustments. In addition to splitting out characters and Paragon levels, revisiting stats like health, armor, and core stats. So they made a bunch of changes to the way that this stuff works. 2,000, I believe, is the highest amount of armor that you need now. Core stats, they kind of reverted that change, so I'm not really sure about that. And then health definitely has gone down quite a bit from previous. So you'll see these are the difficulties that you start with, which is normal, hard, expert, and penitence. Normal is really easy, and penitent is might actually be difficult now. Expert wasn't very hard in the PTR, but probably might actually be difficult with the current changes. You need to get access to, I believe it's the campaign. You have to finish the campaign to get access to expert and penitent. If you haven't completed the campaign, you don't get access to these. So do keep that in mind. The amount of experience and gold that you get per difficulty rises, of course. However, basically the most of the game, like all of the core features of the game, the things that you're actually interested in, are going to start at Torment 1. So there's a lot of things in the game that you can't do until you get to Torment 1. And Torment 1 is basically at level 60. Once you get level 60 and you defeat your first pit level between 1 and 20, beating tier level 20 unlocks Torment 1. So once you defeat your first level 20 pit, you get access to the first Torment tier. There are penalties for the torments, just like in Diablo 2, where you got penalties for, going up to the difficulty ranks. As you can see in Torment 4, the highest penalty is negative 1,000 armor. 1,000 is the armor cap now, so negative 1,000 means that to get to the armor cap, you're going to need 2,000 armor. For resistances, negative 100% is the negative for Torment 4, and that means that you are going to be sitting at what is that? 175 is probably what you're going to be required to at least hit the 75 cap. By adding more difficulties and separating them out this way, players now have increased choice and engaged in how they reward Diablo 4. I'm not really particularly fond of having multiple endgame areas, but I will say this. Most players are probably going to be playing in either Torment 3 or Torment 4. Torment 1 and 2 are kind of easy. We'll see. Monsters no longer have their level displayed and will scale to difficulty you're playing on, so they just no longer have levels. Obducite will now be the only masterwork material going forward. Ingolith and Nethiron have been removed. Obducite will no longer drop from the pit and instead only drops from Nightmare Dungeons, Infernal Hordes, and Vessel of Hatreds Undercity. Ingolith and Nethiron will remain in your materials tab and can be transmuted to Obducite at the Alchemist. Glyphs. The pit wasn't dropping glyphs. And they've changed that. They also kind of switch things around. So Nightmare Dungeons will now be where you get Obducite from, and the pits is where you're going to level up your glyphs. They switched it up. The glyphs are going to be changing their system and how they level up. Instead of being EXP based, it's going to be chance based. And as long as you're in a pit that's higher level than the glyph, it's a 100% chance. So there's really not a big deal. And in general, you're going to level up them fast. In the PTR, we tested this and we were able to get a glyph to 46 relatively quickly, just by simply doing some high tier pits. If you do low tier pits, yes, there might not be a chance for it to succeed. Like for instance, you see here they have a level 44 pit and they're trying to level up a level 46 glyph. So in that case, you might have a percent chance, like a 40% chance. But as long as you're higher than the glyph that you're trying to level, it will always succeed essentially. And if you're way higher than the glyph, it goes up really fast. So this is what they were talking about here, which is the bonus attempts. So as you can see, first run, you can get it up to 9. Second run, it's 14. By the time you get to your third run, you're in 17, 18, right? This extra one is if you don't die, by the way. So if you die, you lose the extra bonus attempt. They also added 4 new Paragon boards for basically all the classes, or 1 new Paragon board for all the classes, so 5 new Paragon boards. And they also reduced the number of boards that you can potentially have to a total maximum of 5, including the starting board, which is 4 additional from the starting board. So also keep that in mind. These new boards are actually really good. Like the Earthquake Barbarian board is really neat, and they added this. Just all the boards are really, really interesting. I think a lot of people are going to like some of these. There's a companion board. There's the Earthquake Dust Devil board. I'm trying to remember all of them. I think it's the Elementalist board. For the Sorceress. But as you get into the game and you see these new boards, you're definitely going to find some very interesting build possibilities with the new boards. And you're going to be much more picky with the boards that you're using because, of course, you can't have as many this time. As you can see here, Paragon points I talked about earlier has increased from 200 to 300. Item quality rework. So ancestral items kind of lost their specialness and flair due to how common they became, and they basically made them into more rare items. If PTR holds true, the ancestral items were actually surprisingly rare. In the entire like public test realm, I only got like a handful of ancestrals. It was like maybe like 10 or 12. The item power on the ancestrals is going to be higher than the normal items at 800. They're also going to have a guaranteed ancestral or greater aspects or affix on them. As you can see, this one is 15% increased attack speed. On top of this, they also are capable of being masterworked up to 12 and tempered twice. So they're going to be superior to the normal items in basically every way. Let's talk about. So sacred items are gone. They're just gone from the game now. Non-ancestral items are capped at 750, is what I just talked about. 750 items can be masterworked up to 8 times. So yeah. They also added the waypoint favorite, which is really nice to see right here where it says favorite. So you can favorite the waypoint. Very, very nice. The Awoken power classes. So basically all the classes got new powers. The Barbarian got Mighty Throw, which is absolutely amazing. They did change some of the stats on it by increasing the damage and apparently kind of not really sure exactly what they did to it. It seems more like a buff, honestly. So if you had fun with Mighty Throw in the PTR, it looks like it's even better. The Druid Stone Burst also seems to have gotten some buffs. This is a new channeling skill for the Druid. This Mighty Throw has been really popular, and I've seen a lot of people having fun with this one, by the way. Necromancer Soul Rift, I played around with this one myself. I really like it. It actually moves with you. They don't really kind of show this in the GIF here, the choosy moms choose GIF, but it does actually move around with you, so it's actually really nice, and it just sucks souls from everything nearby, and it has a really nice damage output. It is a shadow damage ultimate though, so do keep that in mind when you're trying to build around it. The Rogue Dancing Knives that they added has been really popular as well. It's damage and movement at the same time. It's basically Rogue Whirlwind, spin to win. And as you can tell, like just looking at the animated GIF, it's pretty powerful. The sorcerer got or sorceress got the familiar skill, which summons essentially 3 familiars, 1 fire, 1 ice, 1 lightning, and you can change the way that it works, cycle it between different things. There's also a special unique item for it that makes you summon them all at once, which is pretty neat. They also added a lot of really nice passives for the classes as well, like the Barbed Carapace passive for the Barbarian, which gives you thorns. This really cool one here, which is basic skill damage for the Barbarian. They added the one with nature passive for the Druid, which is going to make the companion Druids like absolutely amazing, as well as some other really nice ones. And the Necromancer got a very interesting key passive that allows him to damage monsters with his curses, which is also kind of crazy. The Rogue got the Alchemical Mixture key passive, which is really powerful for imbuements if you're trying to run like a full imbuement rogue. And the Sorceress got the very powerful Enlightenment key passive, which scales based on your bonus with damage, fire, lightning, and cold all together at the same time. And it adds them up and then basically applies them to all of your damage, combining them. So like if you had 200% fire, 200% lightning, and 200% cold, it would just add them all up. That's 246, and you'd have 600% damage bonus. Potentially, obviously, if you can build properly with this, getting as much fire, lightning, and cold damage as you can get a huge amount of damage bonus through the Enlightenment passive, and I heard sorceresses were having a lot of fun with that. They also added a hell of a lot more, like the Party Finder, which I have not played around with myself, but it's probably going to be useful for the new co-op dungeon that they added. And I think that's pretty much it for this article. Now I have tons more stuff to go over, and we're going to go slide by slide here, and I'm just going to cover everything as quickly as I can. So player power changes. So this is like the PTR and the launch. They kind of were talking about how Pit 80 was the end game in the PTR. And instead of that, now it's going to be Torment 4 is more sort of the end game in the launch. And then Pit 80 is going to be like the end game where everybody kind of like sits. Which makes sense because people were getting to 100 relatively easily in the PTR because of the damage output, and the damage output has been reduced significantly, so 80 is probably going to be the number where you're going to get to. Basically, they talked about it kind of like Pit 80 is where the real game starts. It's kind of how they stated it. This also goes over the main stat reduction and the legendary glyph reduction, which I talked about earlier. But once you get to Torment 1, all content is available. And then Torment 4, as you can see, is aspirational. That's where you're like building your characters. I don't think I've ever heard of the word aspirational. I've heard of aspirations. Having your character characterized by aspirations to receive social prestige and material success. But basically, Torment 4 is where you're going to be shooting for, if that makes sense. Paragon updates. They talked about having more normal nodes to support legendary glyph radius upgrades, so they added more normal nodes in the mix. I think a lot of people noticed that there was like very few nodes inside of the radius of the things, despite the fact that we had a larger radius. It was like, okay, well, this larger radius seems mostly wasted. Rare and powerful magic nodes have been adjusted to be more generically useful and powerful. They talked about some of these and like just changed in general some of the stuff. Like, for instance, here it says updated rare nodes across the board. Examples generally open things up to be more usable across the board. Potion healing has turned into healing received. Damage reduction from dots has turned into damage reduction. Doubled all additive bonuses on rare and magic nodes. Increased damage reduction values by 1.5%. Infernal Hordes, problems, feedback, loot was dominating the reward landscape. So they kind of took away, they talked about this, they took away the equipment chest, the one that cost like 20, so you don't click on it 10,000 times. And they've also increased the chest of greater equipment so that it gives some pretty interesting drops, as well as apparently a guaranteed item. I don't know if it says it here. But chest updates, chest of greater equipment is now 200 Aether. Chest of materials converts all remaining materials into Aether into materials, so you don't have to click on it 10,000 times. Chest of gold remains unchanged. Council boss always drops Infernal Horde's unique items and dungeon boss loot. So one of the problems that people were talking about was that they were just having trouble getting the unique items from the Infernal Hordes, the ones that everybody wanted, like Crown of Lucian and whatnot, and they just weren't falling. So now the council boss always drops Infernal Horde's unique items and dungeon boss loot. Keys are exclusively obtained via drops from a variety of activities. So they've made it so that you can't craft the Infernal Core Horde keys anymore, because people were like, there was way too many of them, and they weren't really rare in any way, shape, or form. So they're going to be more specifically farmed. In Season 6, I would recommend not throwing away the compasses, until we figure out just how rare they are. They might be rare enough that you might want to hang on to some compasses and put them in your stash, and we'll see. Rewards significantly increase the ancestral drop rates from Nightmare Dungeons and Whispers. Nightmare Dungeons provide experience on completion. Miscellaneous buffs to loot, Hellborn, Butcher, and World Boss Treasure Goblin. They also made it so that the Butcher always drops his Butcher's Cleaver now. Stronghold experience is now on the first time completion experience adjusted from 2 levels to 1.25. So they did kind of nerf the Stronghold experience a little bit, but they wanted to keep it. But they felt that 2 levels for first time completion was a little bit too much. They also added the first time completion thing. So basically what people were doing in the PTR, which made things ridiculously fast for leveling up, was they were just simply joining somebody else's group, and then they were completing the stronghold and then leaving, and then joining somebody else's group and completing the stronghold and leaving. And as long as you had a steady stream of followers to cough cough provide you with a stream of strongholds, you could level up relatively quickly. I think it was like 20 minutes or something to level 60. But now it is only on the first time completion, and instead of 2 levels, it's 1.25. So they're still going to be nice for leveling up, but you probably want to save them a little bit toward the end as opposed to using them up in the beginning. Non-legendary items auto-salvaged starting in Torment. So anything that's a non-legendary item apparently is just going to get auto-salvaged in Torment 1 and up. Paragon glyphs can now drop from the pit, which is a big win. Itemization and crafting, they talked about this one, and this one was really crazy. They basically made it so that you could craft a random mythic unique with 2 resplendent sparks, so you don't get to choose. And then you can also have a choice by adding in runes to the recipe, so 2 sparks plus a set of runes will get you a specific mythic unique. So depending on how your dice roll, you might end up with the perfect mythic unique for your character. Large amounts of common salvage can now be used to forge a random legendary piece of equipment, which also has a chance to be unique or mythic. And sockets can now be added to gear with general salvage material. Scattered prisms are required for ancestral items. Jeweler no longer has a level requirement to use. They also talked about this other thing, and I'm not sure if it's in the next slide. It's not. That you no longer need to go to the jeweler to desocket an item. So if you take an item, let's say for instance you have armor, and the armor has 2 gems in it, and you go to put a rune in it, it will desocket the gems completely and put the rune in. If you go to put a gem in a armor that has gems in it, it will take out the bottom gem and move the bottom one to the top, apparently, and it will make it. They're basically making it so that you can resocket your piece of equipment on the go. If you put in gems, it takes the runes out. If you put in runes, it takes the gems out. And depending on order in which you put the runes in, it will always like desocket the item in the right order so that you can just simply do it on the go. It's kind of weird, especially considering most of the time people don't have gems on them. So I don't know. I guess with the new consumable or socketable tab, we'll see. Barbarian got some small buffs to Upheaval, Twin Strikes, Ring of Red Fuhrer, Hellhammer, and Martial Vigor, which is a nice little elite damage bonus. They also gave the Druid some interesting changes. So apparently Nature's Fury was triggering casts of abilities that weren't technically casts. So they've kind of clarified that if it says casts, you actually have to cast it. Not that it can be like an auto cast or a free cast from something. So there were some abilities, especially like the Earthbreaker Ring and whatnot, that were causing this problem where it was getting the free cast and then the free cast was summoning the Nature's Fury. So a lot of this stuff has been locked down as far as that's concerned. Grey Staff of the Crone got a buff to critical strike damage replaced with chance for Storm Strike to hit twice. They also beefed up the Untamed Legendary Paragon node to give some more multipliers to the companions. The companions are getting a lot of buffs this season. A companion druid is probably going to be a very solid play at this point. If you guys haven't checked out the companion druid, with the new key passive and all the new things that they're adding for the companion druid, there definitely is a huge companion build coming up. The Necromancer got some minor changes here and there. The Necrotic Fortitude got a more barrier increase, some more damage output for the Collins Edict. The Ring of Mendeln got kind of a buff to apply minion damage to it instead of your damage. So it scales based off of your minion damage bonuses and some more bonuses for the Cult Paragon leaderboard. A 30% to 40% multiplier there. So some interesting buffs for the minion Necromancer. The Rogue got some minor changes. They pretty much said that the Rogue was in a good place. Encircling Blades got a little bit of a damage buff. Blade Dancer got a little bit of damage buff. Victimize got a nerf, actually, which is because they had a bug causing its damage to scale much higher than intended. Apparently, Victimize just kind of constantly overperforms. Rain of Arrows, tempering affix was changed from hit twice to double damage, which I don't like, because that means it's not going to fire twice. It's going to just simply do double damage, which I know it's kind of a simple distinction, but it's a little less spammy and a little bit more damage, but at the same time, it also kind of messes with the way that some of the abilities work and apply their effects. Supreme Rain of Arrows damage increased from 40 to 60, and Prime Rain of Arrows imbuement bonus increased from 30 to 50. So they basically kind of like dialed it back and then buffed it up a little bit. Sorceress Enlightenment fixed an issue where Enlightenment was incorrectly triggering from autocast skills. That's the new key passive, so this one's going to be fun. Fixed an issue where some fire and cold sources were not properly working with Enlightenment. Flamescar and Teleport were both changed to deal double damage instead of chance for Teleport to cast twice. Yes, no, Incinerate size and Teleport size were both replaced with deal double damage. And Talrosh's Iridescent Loop got a small buff from 5 to 8 seconds on the duration. Rune words, they didn't really change the rune words all that much. They did remove some of the rune words that weren't really kind of like performing, like Ono, Met, Ka. Most of these, not really all that amazing runes. I checked them out myself during the PTR, and I looked at them again when I heard that they were removing them, and I'm not really sad about any of these being removed. They also kind of made some changes to the multiplicative damage of the runes. They didn't want the runes to just simply be power additions. Like, hey, look, this is like a big power bonus that you can get to your character. Put it in your slot and get the power bonus. So they kind of took some of the power bonuses away. So the Warcry no longer gives Berserk, which makes sense because it was giving a pretty large multiplier, and Petrify was also giving a rather large multiplier, so they took that away as well. They replaced that one with a 100 resource bonus, which is really nice. So instead of giving you critical strike damage, it gives you 100 resource when you use it. So that could be kind of interesting. Um, we'll see. They did change some of them here and there, just adding some more damage, or like for instance with the wolf one, now they attack have better AI and they attack more frequently and they follow you better. The meteorite, they added a bunch more meteors and increased the damage as well as reducing the cost. And pretty much all the changes they did to the rune words were good. I went over all of them. I took a look at them. I can't really say that any of them were bad. The cooldown on Fio got reduced from 15 to 10. The offering gained from Moni was increased from 10 to 25, and so forth and so on. Pak, which was one that was underperforming, got an offering gain increase from 2 to 5, which is massive because that goes from 2 for every 5% resource spent to 5 for every 5% resource spent, which adds up to a heck of a lot more. If you run that on a calculator real quick, just taking, for instance, like 5% per resource, right? So 100 divided by 5 means 20%, or 20 is the total number of 5% that you can have. So 20 times 2 is a total of 40 offering, which isn't really that amazing. However, now that you have 5, that's 100 divided by 5 times 5 means that you're going to get 100 offering from this every single time you burn all your resource. So it looks a lot better for those classes that have the ability to burn resource. And there's more changes to the rune words. Overall, I don't see anything wrong with any of the changes. They're all going to move us in the right direction to getting some more fun builds. More skill points, new skills, more Paragon points, new legendary glyphs, new legendaries, new uniques, new mythics, builds that hit levels of power we've never seen, new difficulty level challenges for those builds. This is the silly drawing that they had for the portal monster. So this is the portal monster. You kill him, you get a portal, you go to the realm, you get these special little things, you do content, you come back, you kill the portal monster. It's a whole little loop, apparently. This is the key art that they have for it, which is really cool. There's if you go to my Twitter account, I have a retweet from the guy who actually made the art with a nice clean image if you want to pull it for a wallpaper. You guys can check that out. Maybe give me a like on Twitter while you're over there. The Hatred Rising, this is the event here, so you'll see it pop up on the screen. As you can see, it says ends in 9 minutes and 37 seconds. So it cycles all the time. It has its own special icon that you can see right here. And the Realm Walkers are going to be burrowed while they're waiting to pop up. There's a picture of what they look like. The Seething Realm, that's the area you're going to be going to actually go and, go in and play around and get the stuff. And you're going to get the Seething Opals. These are the Seething Opals that you're going to be getting from this particular zone, and they do have very specific bonuses. As you can see here, I talked about those earlier. Routinely drop gold, routinely drop equipment, routinely drop herbs and crafting. This one is boss summoning items or infernal compasses. This one is runes, which a lot of people are going to be really excited about that one. I know I am because I want to collect the runes. This was the slide about the reputation rewards. So this is the quest that we're going to be doing to get reputation. They did change some of the Spiritborn passives, so these are some of the changes. We haven't actually obviously got a chance to play the Spiritborn, at least most of us haven't, so none of these changes really matter all that much to us in terms of like changing things from that perspective. But if you're theory crafting characters, these are some of the changes that they made to the way that these abilities work, so keep that in mind. They also changed the Jaguar ability. So the main Jaguar ability was changed to every 15th time you deal direct damage to an enemy with a Jaguar skill, unleash an additional strike dealing 15% of the damage you have dealt to them in the last 0.5 seconds. All skills are now Jaguar skills. They also kind of like simplified the Stormfeather bonuses. So there's a lot of Stormfeather bonuses, and they were kind of like spread out and badly implemented. I don't think they actually made much changes to them, but more or less just simplified it into a better to understand system. The Storm Feather system is very similar to the blood drops on the Necromancer, blood orbs on the Necromancer, or like the crackling energies on the Sorceress. They're like little feathers that actually fall on the ground. You pick them up, and it gives you specific bonuses. So, and you can do specific things with the Storm Feathers. As you can see, like casting a focus skill recalls all nearby Storm Feathers, dealing damage, or moving with a mobility skill or evade spawns a Storm Feather along behind you. Storm Feathers increase your movement speed by 20% for 1 second when picked up, and extend it to up to 16 seconds. They also posted a bunch of the unique items for the Spiritborn, and some of them are very interesting, like this one with Toxic Skin that allows you to gain the passive effect of Toxic Skin. It's going to be really interesting for Thorns Barbarians. I said Thorns Barbarians. I said Barbarian is the eminent Thorn character, right? But he's not anymore. And I say that, it's funny that a little Freudian slip there, because he's not the eminent Thorns character. I think that the Spiritborn is the eminent Thorns character at this point. But this one seems really neat. There's also a nice Pestilent Swarm ring if you're trying to do the Pestilent Swarm build with all the poison damage. And then this one here seems to be more based around the Armored Hide ability, which is one of the Gorilla abilities. There's so many fun ones for like different characters, and this is just 3 of them. There's also 3 more rings. This one is specifically based around Ferocity, which is the Jaguar. This one is more based around Ferocity and poisoning effects, so it's kind of set up for like a Centipede / Jaguar build. And then this one over here is when you critically strike, you gain 50% of the vigor you spent for the last seconds and gain counterattack's passive effect. So some very interesting like options ring wise, 6 rings essentially for the Spiritborn. There's also some nice booties, armors, and gloves. We've got pretty much data on all these now. So this one is the one that gives you the evade is now Soar, and Soar deals increased damage. This is the one that kind of lets you teleport around. The Jacinth Shell gives you some very interesting spending vigor, heals you, and every second your active cooldowns drain 10% of maximum life to reduce their durations by 3 seconds. Then we have the Touch of Death unique. So the Touch of Death is like an extreme poison damage item. So this one's going to be specifically for the poison damage builds. And not only does it give you plus, like 4 with the greater affix, the Touch of Death, but it also has when you would take direct damage, it is instead distributed as poison damage over the next 10 seconds, but increased by 0%. Lucky hit direct damage has up to a 25% based on your poisoned life percentage to infect an enemy with a Touch of Death. They also have these interesting helmets, as well as some pants. So this one here is, according to your secondary spirit hall choice, your skills are all additionally Jaguar, Eagle, Gorilla, or Centipede. So specifically, and I might have to pull up one of the other screenshots just to like highlight this, but very specifically when they're talking about the Spirit Hall, the Spirit Hall is a thing that you choose your 2 spirits, right? So you have your primary spirit and you have your secondary spirit. When you choose your primary spirit, all of the skills in the tree will gain the tag of that primary spirit, allowing you to scale off of those skills. However, when you are utilizing a secondary spirit, like for instance down here, what this ring or what this helmet is essentially doing is it's allowing you to take your secondary spirit and choose another tag. And that second tag is going to be one that is going to allow you to mark all of your abilities with a second ability and scale based off a second, like scheme. In other words, let's say I was main Jaguar, but I wanted to scale Centipede skills as well. Well, I could choose Centipede as my secondary. Then I could also grab this helmet, which is going to allow my skills to also gain the Centipede tag. It's essentially kind of like the Tempest Roar for the Druid, in the way that it's going to allow you to add an additional tag to your abilities that, isn't going to be there normally. Then on top of this, your skills deal 30% times increased damage per spirit type they have. So in this particular case, you're getting bonus damage as well by adding in tons of additional spirit types, which is kind of a cool way to do it, because if you were to pick, say, a Jaguar as your main, then choose a Gorilla skill, and then choose Centipede as your secondary, you could potentially have a Gorilla skill which is now utilizing Jaguar, Centipede, and Gorilla tags, which means it's going to get 30, 30, and 30. So it's going to get 90 times multiplier for having 3 different spirit type tags, which is going to be really powerful. Loyalties Mantle. While your Spirit Hall choices match, their bonuses are 100% more potent. Skills as of their base spirit gain 60% vigor cost reduction, and skills of their base spirit gain 60% cooldown reduction. So this one is the opposite. Instead of rewarding you for choosing different ones, this one is rewarding you for choosing the same one in both categories. Then we have Protection of the Prime. While moving, you gain 30% dodge chance. After standing still for 2 seconds, you become unstoppable until you move. Then we have the weapons. So we have a mythic weapon for the character, which is every 5 seconds you randomly mark nearby enemies. Marked enemies are vulnerable, and your attacks against them guaranteed to critically strike or overpower. Hitting a marked enemy 10 times clears the mark from them. And this one gives you overpower, critical damage, tons of bonus damage. It's a pretty powerful, like generic, powerful, unique. Or mythic, rather. There's also the Wuxi Nok Pa, which is casting an ultimate skill grants or amplifies its matching primary spirit hull bonus with 100% potency for 15 seconds. Your ultimate skills each gain additional skill types. The Seeker is a focus skill, the Hunter is a mobility skill, the Devourer becomes a potency skill, and the Protector becomes a defensive skill. The Sepa Zon Tech, which is based around basic skills and looks really neat. This one is your basic skills deal 100% increased damage and are always using their third attack. Every third attack of a basic skill strikes 3 times. Rod of Kepeleke, which is also very interesting and caught a lot of attention during the live stream, is this one actually gives you your core skills are now additionally basic skills and are for now free to cast, but deal up to 30% reduced damage based on their vigor cost. When cast at maximum vigor, your core skills consume all vigor to return their full damage. Cast at their largest size and become guaranteed critical strikes with 3% times increased critical strike damage for each point of vigor spent this way. I think a lot of people are going to have some fun building around this one as well. This is a short list of where the items are going to be dropping from specific monsters. So if you are looking to find any of these items, going into Season 6 and you want to get your build set up, like for instance, if you're looking for the Sepa Zon Tech, that one comes from Andariel and Duriel, or if you're looking for the Scorn of the Earth, that one comes from Beast in the Ice, and so forth and so on. So you might want to screenshot this. It's a nice little handy list to see. This should be up on Diablo4.life too once we get everything set up. So if you want to go over to Diablo4.life and pull up the unique target farming list, this data should be there as well, and you could put in any of the items. The Kurast Undercity is going to be a time attack dungeon. So by time attack dungeon, what they mean is that it's going to start with like 60 seconds, and you have to find monsters within the dungeon that are going to elongate that duration. And as long as you are capable of reaching the end, which is basically the tier 4 here, you can kind of let me see if I can zoom in on this. Right here, you see it says tier 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. As long as when you get to the end with at least tier 1, you'll get the rewards. And tier 4 is going to give you the highest rewards. And basically, the whole dungeon is based around, like flowing through the dungeon, finding the monsters that you need to kill, and clearing out the area to get to the end. It looks like it's going to be pretty fun. I'm kind of excited for it. They've also talked about the tributes that you can add to this, so you can change how the reward is going to be. And they have quite a few different rewards. There's also some crazy stuff that you can do in terms of like what the reward will be. So you can see here skill ranks. Legendary armor will always possess at least 1 skill rank affix, or passive ranks. Legendary amulets will always possess at least one passive affix, and it costs 50 million gold to add that to the list. There's basically specific things that you can sacrifice to enhance the way that these work, and also specific tributes that you can choose in the process. And basically, you interact with the Spirit Blazer, you apply the tribute, you apply a bargain, which is optional, but you can sacrifice something to get a specific drop, and then you run the district. The tributes all have various forms. You can see here we have a magic tribute, which is going to get you at least additional experience. This one has guaranteed runes, the Tribute of Harmony. This one is Ancestral Legendaries, and this one has a guaranteed unique item and with an increased drop chance for mythic uniques. So as you can see, there's different tiers to the tributes that you can use in the process. There's also going to be a specific type of loot goblin called the Portal Prankster. The Portal Prankster is going to be a specific type of challenge that you have to overcome when you're inside, because of course this is a dungeon that has a timer, a 60-second timer. The Portal Prankster is going to spawn a bunch of portals, and he's going to teleport between the portals, wasting your time. His entire purpose is to waste your time, and so going after him is with the understanding that if he manages to waste too much of your time, you might fail the dungeon. So keep that in mind. However, he does give some really interesting drops, so rewards a bonus chest containing loot, runes, and tributes, so he's definitely worth going after if you can kill him. They also added the Dark Citadel, which is going to be Khazra, and you're going to have like a city area. So they talked about the Ancient Nexus here as a city area that you can go to, with 3 different zones that you can explore: the Enclave of Strife, the Dominion of Zagral, and the Labyrinth of Souls. And these are all particularly nasty bosses that we're going to be fighting. Here's some of the images of these bosses. And there is going to be incense powder from them. So we've got some various weird incenses, like for instance the ability to revive 3 players nearby. The Dark Citadel does require co-op, which is something that definitely keep in mind. So we're gonna have to actually play with other people. They also have the Scrolls of Restoration in here, the Scroll of Abundance, which is used to restore 30% of health and drop health potions for nearby players. Every 10 seconds, your next core skill heals you and your allies for 10% of their maximum health. There's a lot of like team-based stuff in here. Increased healing by 15%, revive speed by 25%. After reviving a player, gain 10% move speed for 5 seconds. Increases damage by 5% for all nearby players. For each nearby dead player, gain 5% damage and up to 15. Increase all stats by 30 for nearby players. After killing an enemy, gain +2 to all stats for 5 seconds. There's some interesting incense, elixirs, and scrolls added in here. The mercenaries, they went over the mercenaries in detail, and we have a lot more information on them. So the mercenaries will work in single player when you're by yourself, but they will not work in multiplayer, which is a little bit of a bummer. However, they are going to be adding in a very specific system called the reinforcement system, which will work no matter what you're in. So let me see if I can find the reinforcement system. So this is the reinforcement system right here. And basically what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to choose a specific skill on your bar. And then you're going to be able to choose a specific skill that your mercenary has. And when you go to use that specific skill, your mercenary is going to come out and use his skill, and it's going to act as a combo timed attack, which is going to be pretty neat. And there's going to be a lot of ways that you can use this to your advantage, which is definitely going to be very, very helpful. There's also a kind of like a mercenary reputation system called bartering, which sounds pretty cool. And each mercenary is going to have its own specific rapport and bartering structure. So there are going to be specific items that you can get from specific mercenaries. So it might be within your best interest to level them all up. They also are going to have a special shop, which is going to be utilizing coins that are only for the mercenaries. I believe they were called like iron tokens or something like that. And you're going to be able to purchase specific items and refresh the shop looking for something that you're interested in. Now, the mercenaries themselves do have a actual tree of leveling, so you can actually put points in and choose how you want them to behave and how you want the skills to behave. Specific effects that you want to add to the skills and how they work. There's also a specific bonus for choosing a mercenary as well. So, for instance, with the shield bearer, or the crusader rather, when you would be damaged for at least 15% of your current life at once, Rahir comes to your aid, and to negate the damage, knockdowns close enemies for 2 seconds and grants you unstoppable for 0.5 seconds. Basically, he just comes and saves you. Like, this is like a passive effect for having him equipped, and all of the mercs kind of have their own passive effect. For instance, the Subo, the bounty hunter, has a very interesting passive effect that allows him to reveal all enemies and materials in the area on the minimap. which is really cool to see. And they did show a screenshot of it, and it's just like tons of dots all over the place, of various colors and various designs, kind of showing you where all the monsters are and whatnot. Honestly, for farming and some specific things, even if I might not necessarily want Subo, just the ability to reveal all the materials on the map is insane. Um, and there are a lot of very specific ways that you can, of course, take advantage of these guys. Like this is the Aldkin, the Cursed Forsaken Child. And it says Aldkin occasionally loses control of his curse, transforming into a ferocious demon for 22 seconds. This grants Aldkin powerful new abilities, but unleashes an evil curse at you for its duration. Curse of Darkness. You and nearby enemies become vulnerable. Or Curse of Flames. Your direct damage burns enemies for 2,195 30% damage over 3 seconds, but you lose 10% of your maximum resource per second. Very interesting ways that you can customize these mercenaries and get specific abilities. I think that not only the single player version, because you're going to be able to have access to the single player version whenever you're playing by yourself, but you're also going to get access to the reinforcement version at all times. So it's going to be fun to figure out exactly what I want with the reinforcement version and what I want for my main mercenary when I'm playing by myself, because it is going to make a pretty big difference for how these characters function. And going over the mercenaries themselves, I mean, it's very simple. The shield bearer is, of course, very tanky and has a lot to do with taunting, causing enemies to, like stop damage, giving you armor, resistances, and whatnot. The barbarian is very offensive, giving you like things like overpower and attack speed bonuses and things like that. Subo seems to be very tactical in that he has lots of traps and various things that cause, like very similar to the way that the rogue works with her traps, like damage bonuses through the traps and slows and all sorts of various interesting things. Subo is probably one of the most interesting, or not Subo, the Cursed Child, because the Cursed Child just has kind of like, I don't know, both fire and shadow. He also has the haunt ability from the Diablo 3. Why am I Witch Doctor? The Diablo 3 Witch Doctor, as well as some very interesting ways to increase damage over time effects and some other neat stuff. I mean, overall, it looks like the mercenary system is going to be pretty involved. There's going to be a bartering system. There's going to be the reinforcement system. There's also going to be choosing them for your single player playthrough. So figuring out exactly how you want to use them on single player. And then which buffs that you want. You basically have 4 skill points from what I've been able to gather. And you have basically 2 paths that you can take. You have the left path and the right path, and then you have 2 skills that you can choose from in each path. And you can only choose 1 skill with the 4 skill points, essentially. And what you choose here is going to also change their like main buff in some cases. Like for instance, with the Aldkin Cursed Child, you saw that choosing the main buff to the darkness side grants you, you and your enemies become vulnerable. Getting the flame side, which is the opposite side, gives you the fire buff and also causes you to lose maximum resource. So there's definitely some positives and some bonuses. They talked about Aldkin specifically being the Curse Kiss version. They wanted him to be kind of like hey, he's really powerful, but also, yeah, he's kind of cursed. Um, so far, I've been having a lot of fun going over these and thinking about them. So Varanya, which is the Berserker Crone, she has you and Varanya stack Massacre together on kills. Certain stack thresholds grant movement speed. 10 stacks is 5% movement speed. 25 stacks is 10%. 50 stacks is 15%, and 100 is 20% movement speed. Massacre resets after 7 seconds of not killing an enemy. I'm a little bit worried about her. Her abilities seem really neat, but she also they also called her a reformed cannibal. Yeah, that's right, a reformed cannibal. Let me say that again. Reformed cannibal. I don't even know how you can be a reformed cannibal, but that's the thing. Overall, I definitely really like the mercenary system, and I'm super excited for it. I'm honestly super excited for just in general the new season. It's going to be really, really fun. The patch notes, they did go over some stuff in the patch notes, and I don't really know if there's a whole lot in the patch notes that I haven't already covered. They do have two different patch notes, though. There's version 2.02 and there is version 2.01. 2.01 is kind of like the PTR version with updated fixes. And then 2.02 is the new updates. They did have a couple changes in here. Let me go through this as fast as I can because I know it's already been almost an hour. They did add 50 additional pit tiers, so instead of 100, it's going to be 150. They also made it so you can unlock the tiers faster from 3 to 5 if you're much higher than the tier that you've completed. Lower level monsters will now drop more items and less crafting materials. Overall, the loot quality from drop by Hellborn has been increased. There is now a chance to receive at least one legendary item with an additional chance to receive 1 to 2 more. They also increased the treasure goblins and the butcher have been improved. The butcher will always drop at least one legendary item and will always drop his butcher's cleaver unique weapon. Treasure goblins will now always drop at least one legendary item no matter what level they're killed. World boss loot now scales with higher torment tiers. Adjusted the drop rates of mythic uniques items from ladder bosses to compensate for being guaranteed ancestral quality. Duriel and Andariel do not guarantee mythic unique drop, but their chance to drop mythic uniques is twice as high as other torment bosses. I'm kind of they in season 5 they made them all the same, and then in season 6 they put them back to Duriel and Andariel being higher, which is a little odd. The chance for unique items to roll as ancestral has been significantly increased. Basically, they were having an issue with the unique items not really dropping as ancestral, which was a problem. They were just not dropping as ancestral at all. Starting in Torment difficulty 1, only legendary and unique items can drop. I talked about this earlier. Like basically all the items that are not legendary or unique are going to get converted into materials. They do have all the changes for the runes here, and like I said, they're all pretty good. The Lith rune, which was really powerful, has been updated to instead of stand still for 0.3 seconds, now it's stand still while fighting for 0.3 seconds. So you can't just stand still. You have to actually be actively attacking something, which is just a good change in my opinion because it was leading to AFK builds. Most of the changes here, like the reduced cooldown to Fio is good. The offering increase for Vex is probably a good idea because plus 3 to all skills is really powerful. A lot of these changes are just really good changes across the board, which I think are going to make these a lot better for people to use, a lot easier for people to get more effect out of them. They increased the damage of a lot of these, like stun grenades got increased. The Iron Maiden got increased. The Pestilent Swarm got increased damage. The Spirit Wolves increased damage and also better AI. And so forth and so on. All of them are good. They also had a very interesting update to have the runes coming from Diablo 2 to match their previous rune types. So the Ohm, Thul, Vex, Lum, Ja, and Tal runes now actually match their predecessors, which is very, very good. Chip gems can now be crafted at level 1 instead of 15. I'm not really sure why we need chip gems at level 1, but they're there. We also get gem fragments starting at level 5. You no longer require scattered prisms for non-ancestral items to socket, so you only need scatter prisms for the ancestral items. The trying to get like everything in here. A lot of the Paragon changes were basically just changing specific things, like I talked about earlier, to more useful bonuses. One of the biggest ones I saw in here was the single element resistances are now been converted to max resistances, which is going to be really powerful. A lot of individual changes to skills. Most of them are just giving damage buffs or fixing things that were wrong to them. Like, this is all Paragon changes to changing specific Paragon to less specific, which is nice. They talked about the health for dungeon monsters have been increased to have less of a jump between them and the boss to smoothen transition and encounters. Scrolls of Restoration, you can get those from the Season Journey. I talked about Penitent difficulty being unlocked at the start. This one is interesting. So they didn't really make much of a change to how armor works, but they did change that. So armor is going to be more effective at lower levels, and less effective at higher levels, which is how it should have been to begin with. So basically, if you're at, say, like the armor cap is 1,000, if you're at 500, before it would have been like, say, let's just pretend it's 100% just for memes. It would have been 50%, right? 50 for half of 1,000 is 500, and 500 would be 50% damage reduction. But now how they had it set up is that the lower your armor is, the more effective it is. So as you start adding more and more armor, 500 armor might be more like 70%. But then adding an additional 200 to, say, like 5, 6, 700 is not going to be 70%. It's going to be a smaller jump between the previous. So the higher you get, the less effective armor is. This really doesn't matter so much, except for the lower level characters. All this really matters for, to be honest, is the babies that are leveling up. It just makes it easier for them as they're leveling. When you're a higher level character, you're still going to want to cap out armor. So there's really not any difference. Intensity scaling has been moved into Torments 1 through 4. Scaling has been adjusted to be more noticeable. Intensity seems to be a new difficulty about thing that they've added into the game, which basically causes monsters to move faster, their cooldowns to recharge faster, and they're better at aiming projectiles. Basically, it makes them smarter and more likely to beat the crap out of you. So, should be interesting. The 2 times, I talked about the 2 times increased main stat being reverted, so that's there as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else super important in here. I've already gone over so much, and there's so much more. Most of these are just small changes that we're really going to have to get into the game to find out what's going on. Like, I hate to say this, but with all the changes that we currently have active, we really are not going to know exactly how the game is going to play until we get into the game and actually, start doing stuff. I hope that you guys enjoyed this recap. In fact, I forgot to go over the 2.02s. Most of these have to do with small changes to the rune words, changing, kind of like rebalancing them. It's going to be a little while before the runes and the rune words kind of get into their optimal state. As you can see, there's a lot of damage buffs for the runes there. They clarified that, like, a skill that is cast, and I talked about this earlier, has to actually be cast. So, like, unleashed has been the new word that they're kind of like using. They did limit lightning spears to 12 at one time, so you can only have a maximum of 12 lightning spears active at any given time, which is a pretty big nerf to the Fractured Winter class sorceresses. A lot of these double damage things have been added into the game. They've even replaced a lot of the cast twice or chance to deal damage, like a second hit or something, to double damage, which I'm not really entirely sure is a buff. It seems more like a nerf to me, but yeah, whatever. So was it anything else? Oh yeah, Infernal Compasses can no longer be crafted. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but they do drop from specific places now. I did talk about you might want to hang on to them, and you probably are going to want to because you can't craft them anymore. So when you do get Infernal Compasses in Season 6, hang on to them for a little while before you, start getting rid of them, because they may or may not be rare. Ba 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 ba. I think that's pretty much it. There was one more thing that I wanted to go over when it came to the skipping the campaign. So they talked about this, and one of the other things that I wanted to reiterate this now. So if you're interested in playing the new campaign, but you don't want to play the old campaign, you can skip the campaign by just simply utilizing the skip campaign button. And they do have it in here. So the Vessel of Hatred campaign requires you to purchase Vessel of Hatred expansion. To begin, create a new character and either Eternal Realm or Seasonal, or play as an existing character for the Eternal Realm. You can select skip campaign if you want your new character to go right to the beginning of the Vessel Hatred campaign. So this is important for you guys who might be interested and you think you might have to replay the entire campaign. So if you've already beaten the campaign for Diablo 4, and you want to start from the Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred portion of the campaign, then all you have to do is select Skip Campaign, and that will take you into the Vessel of the Hatred campaign portion. It will not skip the Vessel of Hatred campaign because you have not completed the Vessel of Hatred campaign, and it will allow you to play the Vessel of Hatred campaign without playing the original campaign, which is probably the way that most people are going to choose to do it. Because unless you could probably replay it right now. You still have 4 days, 13 hours, 26 minutes, and 7 seconds, so you got plenty of time to go back and do the original campaign if you just want to have fun with it. But if you just want to do the Vessel of Hatred campaign, I just wanted to throw that in there, that it is something that you can do by hitting the skip campaign button. An hour later, and I think I've covered just about everything, but I'm sure I missed something. Let me know what you guys think about the information that we received on Season 6. I'm super excited going into Vessel of Hatred. There are so many fun things that I'm going to be playing with. The Spiritborn, the Mercenaries, Mephisto, the freaking reinforcement system, the rune words. Like, I don't even know. It's like my brain is exploding. And I don't really know what to do about him. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.
Mr. Goody Two Shoes, Mr. Goody Two Shoes. Ginger Evil Mentor here. Why bother farming when you can go to MMOEXP.com and simply purchase your items in gold? GGM would have you farm the items. What a pathetic being. Use code GEM Ginger Evil Mentor for 6% off your entire purchase. And don't tell Ginger Gaming Mentor that I was here.